Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Gould, and you read the title, you know what this is about. I'm going to be covering some of the spoilers we got and some of the cards that were previously spoiled before the Magic Con. And I kind of wanted to take, some of the few that we've seen, and I wanted to kind of elaborate why I feel like these would be some good cards. And if you're one of those people that don't like to include Universes Beyond cards in your Magic the Gathering decks, I completely, I'm fine with that. I'm cool with you wanting to do your own thing and play Magic with Magic cards. That's fine. But sometimes these cards just go pretty wild. And I feel like some of these will find their way into regular Magic decks. So without further ado, let's go on ahead and start out with the Pyrrhidon Steel Flagship. 4 generic and 2 white, this is a 6/6 legendary artifact vehicle with flying, and whenever another non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white human knight creature token with this creature gets +2/+2 as long as an artifact enters the battlefield under your control this turn, and it has crew for 2. So to start out, not only is it just a big beefy flyer, but because it is a vehicle, it does not stay a creature for long. Oh, excuse me. It doesn't say a creature for long, so you would have advantageous points to be able to play an artifact and make this a creature and save it from board wipes on other people's turns. So this could be really good. And another point I wanted to make up I wanted to hit on this one is because of it does not stop when you cast just one artifact. When one artifact enters the battlefield, you can spam as many of these as you can. You can empty your hand and just make like 6 2/2 human knight creature tokens. Now, to note, all of them will be getting +2/+2, and you won't be able to do nothing with it unless you're playing this in a more vehicle based build. Decks like Grease Fang uh, would love a card like this because you can consistently bring back artifact vehicles. It does not say cast, it just says whenever it enters. So I feel like artifacts centric decks would really enjoy this card. But not only that, if you're playing in a deck like Myrel, which you're going to be playing a mixture of creature and artifact creature, you know you're going to be getting that extra 2/2 human knight creature token with a buff. And I feel like this would be really good. And it's even better if you're playing in an artifact centric build by itself. If you're just playing artifacts, you're not playing any specific one, and you're using token doublers or triplers, now that we have those, it can get pretty wild because you dish out like 4 artifacts and now you have 12 bodies. You can get pretty wild. So on to our next one, we have a land, Helios 1. Now this is going to be a rare land, and it does tap for colorless, but you can tap one and tap it and you get an energy counter. Now that might not seem like a lot, but energy is coming back in Modern Horizons 3, so get ready for that, I guess. But it does have a third ability where you can tap 3, tap it, pay X energy, and you can sacrifice it and destroy target non-land permanent with mana value X, but you can only do it as a sorcery. I feel like colorless decks will love this as in a way to get around not having as much removal. I mean, we do still have the all will be dust, or the, what is it called? Whatever it's called, all is dust. There we go. And we have some, but this is slowly making it to where colorless can be more viable as a commander color identity based deck, if you want to think about it that way. And I feel like not only colorless decks probably aren't going to be the only ones to utilize this, it'll probably be other decks that can just stack, utilize the energy in, other ways, and not counting the Fallout decks. Sentinel Sarah Leons. For 3 generic, a red and a white, it's a 4/4 legendary creature human knight with haste. And as long as another artifact entered the battlefield under your control this turn, creatures you control get +2/+2. Here again, we see that anthem effect, that temporary anthem effect, that overrun effect. But this time, it's not just on your human knights, not just her. It's not just the tokens you make, it's for all of your creatures. So I feel like this would be a good upgrade to decks like artifact equipment eccentric builds, something that would buff your creature, especially if you're running artifacts, heavy artifacts, which you would do in a equipment based build if you're in a Voltron build. But she also has the battalion ability. Whenever they and at least 2 other creatures attack, it deals damage equal to the number of artifacts you control to target player. So say you just went, and this does not count non-token. This is counting all of them. So you're going to get, like say you have 100 treasures. Well, you can just blast somebody for 100. And if you don't use them all, you're going to be a target for the rest of the game to try and take out before you just keep knocking out players. So I feel like this could actually be another good treasure-based build if you wanted to do that. Because with Smothering Tithe, if your opponents don't pay for Smothering Tithe, guess what? Now you just got a 6/6 commander, which you would play this on curve. Smothering Tithe on turn 4 or 3, and Sentinel Sarah on turn 4 or 5. And this just goes bonkers, especially if you can wait until later game where you can get like a dockside and you already have a huge amount of creatures. This gets pretty wild. And not only that, but I feel like a Neem Pakal from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan set would love this as an upgrade. Or you can put a Neem in this deck, so when you start making more artifact creatures, gnomes that are artifacts, you can capitalize, and every time one of them enters, they get +2. Say you get 5 of them entering. Well, now your army of 2/2s just became, what, 10/10, 12/12s, 11/11s? They get +10/+10. So, I mean, it could get pretty wild. And, the battalion ability could just be, okay, I have 100 treasures, thanks, I'm going to kill you now. I feel like this commander specifically has bukus of avenues you could take it. You could go human knight tribal. You can go knight tribal, human tribal, artifact human, or artifact knight tribal, which would be pretty interesting for me to see. But I feel like this could be a really good card in your commander decks if you're looking to add something, some spice to it, if you must. Red Death Shipwrecker. For just a blue and a red, it's a 1/3, and it has the ability Alluring Eyes. You can tap it, go target creature an opponent controls, that player draws a card, and you add red. It's a mana dork that pushes goad to the extreme, that you can find a way to consistently tap and untap, then you got it made. Which, now that I think about it, if you put what is it? Oh, it's the blue enchantment that says you can pay blue to untap a creature. Is it Penman's Aura? If you place a Penman's Aura on this and you have the Chromatic Orrery, which says you can use any color mana as whatever color mana you want. You can consistently just goad all your opponent's creatures and they'll draw the cards, but you're gonna consistently keep your opponents goaded off of you, which would be amazing. That's actually pretty cool. I'm glad I came up with that one on the spot. I'm actually kind of proud of myself on that one. Sean, Father of Sense, for 3, a blue and a red. It's a 3/4. Legendary creature, Human Scientist. Whenever you attack, you may create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of target attacking legendary creature you control other than Sean, except it's not legendary and it's a synth artifact creature in addition to its other types. When he leaves the battlefield, exile all synth tokens you control. And I love that they have made the correction on the wording, because this reads a lot like Chainer Dementia Master, where on the bottom line of text it says, when he leaves, exile all synth tokens, where Chainer said exile all nightmares, all nightmares. So if you found a way to make Chainer a nightmare, you just killed your own Chainer. You have to recast him from the command zone. But not only does he do that well, they have also made it to where they do not sacrifice at the beginning, at the end step, or the end of combat, or at the end step, which could be great if you're pairing this with multiple different colors. If you're running a red, black, blue, white commander artifact deck, this just gets crazy, because you now have, say you have the Pereduin or whatever it's called. It's a legendary creature then, and now you just have 2 of them, so you double the tokens, which could be pretty good. Or you have anything else, and not to mention the fact that you can turn anything into an artifact. So, I mean, if you wanted to make something else into an artifact, pretty cool. But they also have ways to make stuff legendary. So, Leyline of Singularity comes to mind. I think that's how it works. Let me look at the wording on that. I'm actually very curious on how that works. Oh, I cannot spell. Y'all are getting a live demonstration of, well, not a live, because this is not going live. I'm not doing this to y'all while y'all are sitting there doing all that. But yeah, Leyline of Singularity, all non-land permanents are legendary. So you can turn any creature, as long as you don't have multiple copies of them in the deck, which, unless you're playing like a persistent petitioners deck, all of your creatures will be legendary. As long as you don't make tokens, which you do with this, then they become not legendary, but then they also become legendary, so that kind of defeats the purpose of making them all legendary. But yeah, never mind. I thought it was pretty neat. Curry Emergent Intelligence for 1 and a blue. It is a legendary artifact creature robot that is power toughness 1/3. Oh, it's a lot of text. Whenever Curry Emergent Intelligence deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its base power. So if you can find a way to buff its power, you can draw more cards. Then you can tap a generic and a blue and exile another non-token artifact creature you control. It becomes a copy of the exiled creature, except it has, when this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its base power. So once you turn it into a something else, it has to die to become anything. You know, if you find a way to bring it back, you have to bring it back and able to be able to change it into something else. That's the only part that I see that would be not fun if you were not using this as a commander, because then you wouldn't be able to get the benefits of using all the different creatures in your graveyard. This kind of reminds me of the zombie from either it was Midnight Hunt or Crimson Vow, that you sacrifice. No, you don't sacrifice. You exile a creature card from your graveyard, and it gains those abilities. This is what it reminds me of, but you can do all kinds of different creatures for that one, where this one isn't as good. Which, if you played that in this deck, no, I'm doing the whole draw thing like all over again. Never mind, don't worry about that one. And then we're getting into probably one of my favorite sections of this video, the zombies. Starting out with Tato Farmer for 2 and a green. This is a 1/4 zombie mutant peasant. And it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may get 2 rad counters. And you can tap it, put target land card in a graveyard that was milled this turn onto the battlefield under your control tapped. Now, in other, we'll see other cards from the set that, you know, if you lose life to rad counters, you gain that life instead. So, you know, the more rad counters your opponents have, or you know, it gets worse the more rad counters you have. But I feel like this is good for landfall based centric decks, and especially if you want to put this in a 5-color zombie deck or something, or a 5-color landfall deck. Now you can get all the access to all the colors that you might need. Glowing one for another 2 and a green. It's a 2/2 zombie mutant, and it has death touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, they get 4 rad counters. Wow. Whenever a player mills a non-land card, you gain 1 life. So if you wanted to play Sultai Mill, you know, that's pretty good. You'll gain Buku's life. And the 4 rad counters ain't bad either, even though it's a 2/2. Jason Bright, Glowing Prophet. For 2 and a blue, this is a 2/3 zombie mutant advisor. Legendary creature. And whenever a zombie or mutant you control dies, if its power was different from its base power, draw a card. Now let me tell you, this would be in no short supply. Throw this in a zombie deck, and every time a creature dies, if you had a lord out, you draw a card. Pretty good in my opinion. And then he has the ability, Come Fly With Me. For 2 generic, sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains flying until end of turn. Now, me personally, I feel like there are some lords that already grant flying. I don't feel like this would be a great include if you already have a multitude of those already in your deck. But this is not just a zombie. This is for zombies, mutants. So it could be pretty good in my opinion if you were playing the Fallout deck, or for mutants, Simic mutants, or any color combination of zombie decks. Because for the card advantage, solely based on the card advantage. This would actually be pretty good in Sultai if you could consistently bring back all the creatures that you killed or you sacrificed with Jason Bright. But to be honest, also, this would not be a bad zombie commander by himself, because we do have mutants and we do have zombies, and we do have some zombie mutants, especially Jason Bright. But to be able to draw those cards, you'd have to have a lord, and I can't say that we have a lord just in blue for zombies. So that might be a little bit harder to do, but you can also use effects like Vanquisher's Banner, Icon of Ancestry, stuff like that to buff your zombies to where they're above their base power, which could be pretty easy to do in blue, and especially because, if you're using artifacts, you're in blue anyway, so you can search them up. And then the flying ability would just be icing on the cake if you can just if you have enough creatures and mana to sacrifice to put counters on them all and give them all flying. Vault 12, the Necropolis. This is a enchantment saga for 4 generic and 2 black. And then you start on 1, and each player gets 3 rad counters. On the second lore counter, you create X 2/2 black zombie mutant creature tokens, where X is the total number of rad counters among players. If each player gets 3, you're in a 4-player game. 3, 6, 9, 12. That's 12 zombies. I feel like for 6 mana, 12 zombies is not bad. Because what? That's 24 power. Then if you can get to the last lore, adding the last lore counter on it, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control that's a zombie or a mutant. This would just be great in any zombie deck because if you have a multitude, and I'm just going to go on ahead and say it, I play in huge big games, 5+ player games. So this would do work. So you got 5 people with 3 rad counters, not counting all the other rad counters that may be, floating around at this point in time whenever this is getting played. You could see upwards of like maybe 30 zombies off of this. So then you immediately become the threat. So you got to find a way to protect it. So I'd probably play this in the blue-black version. That way you could have counter magic and stuff. But yeah, then all of your 2/2s become 4/4s. And 34 4s can kill some people. Because that's 120 damage. That's 30 damage to 4 players. Or just totally making sure that you kill the 2 players evenly. So I feel like this one will see a lot of play in zombie-based decks. And or really even enchantment-based decks because it's an enchantment. You can put it in anything. You put it in if you have a way to make all of your creatures a type or shapeshifter or changelings, oh, that could be pretty good. Rawl Troubleshooter for 1 generic, a blue and a black. This is a 1/4 legendary creature zombie mutant rogue. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from among cards in your graveyard that were milled this turn in your graveyard. So this ability kind of doesn't help unless you're playing it in the deck or you're like rummaging through your opponent's graveyards because you can tap him and each player mills a card. It's not bad, but it ain't great in my opinion. But I feel like being able to cast cards you milled or you were milled, so even if it wasn't, your turn, if you can find a way to bring it back later, it's pretty good. Hancock Ghoulish Mayor for 2 generic and a black. This is a 2/1 legendary creature zombie mutant advisor. And each creature you control that's a zombie or mutant gets +X/+X, where X is the number of counters on Hancock Ghoulish Mayor. And it also has the Undying ability, which when it dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So immediately play it turn 3, somebody kills it in a board wipe or something, it comes back as a 3/2. Well, guess what? Now all your zombies are going to get +1/+1. And then if you can find a way to give it a vigilance, flying, menace, death touch, indestructible, fate, all the different other kind of counters, it just gets bigger. And I feel like even if you're just using +1/+1 counters, then it would stack. So say you have 7 +1/+1 counters on it. Okay, everything's going to get +7/+7, which that would be completely bonkers. So I feel like this will make its own debut as a leading zombie commander in the coming weeks and months. And then we finally come to the very last card in this video. This is Feral Ghoul for 2 generic and a black. This is a 2/2 zombie mutant with menace. And whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Feral Ghoul. When Feral Ghoul dies, each opponent gets a number of rad counters equal to its power. So, rad counters deal damage, forever how many rad counters they have. So if somebody has 100 rad counters, guess what? They're taking 100 life. So, yeah, this is the newest piece it's almost a cheaper piece. I don't know what other pieces you could possibly make cheaper for a Gravecrawler combo. But as of right now, this looks to be a, if you do it right, you could probably do this on turn, let's see, turn 1, Gravecrawler, a mana rock of some sort, a free mana rock for a Sol Ring, Lotus Petal. Let's say Mana Vault. No, let's say Mana Crypt. So Swamp, Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, Mana Crypt, Sol Ring, Feral Ghoul, and some way to make 3 mana. Then you could just have a turn 2 win, technically. That's like just God hand right there. But yeah, I feel like Feral Ghoul is gonna be making waves in more competitive, and you're gonna be seeing this in your zombie combo decks. People that were playing zombie decks. But to be honest, we already here. If you know us, you love us or you hate us one way or the other. But that is going to be it for today, guys. I kind of rambled on some of these, but I hope you can, if I helped you learn a little something, that's more than what I can be proud of. I appreciate everybody that that watches the videos, that likes the videos, that comments on the videos, and shares the videos to their friends. And I can't appreciate you guys enough. But that is going to be it for today, and I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.